Hello, and welcome to Replay Value. If the main draw of Hyouka for you is the relationship between Hotaru and Chitanda, the final 5 episodes of the show are likely among your favorites, with episodes 18 and 19 in particular getting a lot of love from commenters over the course of this analysis series. There's a lot to love in our remaining moments with these characters, and after taking a nice relaxing breather from the series after the soul-crushing length of that festival arc video, I'm excited to jump back into it. As always, we're doing things in chronological order, so today we'll be taking a look at episode 18 and how a single helicopter helps us get to the core similarity between our two leads. If there's a prevailing undercurrent to the cinematography in Hyouka, it would have to be the way that the show establishes the setting. Episode 4 naturally brought us from an urban setting to a rural one, and Episode 5 gorgeously showcased what that environment was like. Episode 7 brings us somewhere new but makes it feel familiar, and of course the amount of detail put into just about every element of the high school's architecture and furnishings create a space that feels real and lived in. This is arguably Kyoto Animation's greatest strength as a studio. The reason why I want to talk about it here, though, is because episode 18 is more focused on a larger context. The city's surroundings and how it works within that space. Instead of being about just the city like the shots in episode 10, we're exploring how it exists in the larger environment, as opposed to its internal one. It achieves this by using every opportunity to show off the landscape, even if it's just in the corner of a shot like this one. And so it's not surprising that this episode, like many before it, uses its first shot to convey this, while also using the audio to establish the helicopter. The following shots bring a sense of normalcy to the show after the long festival arc, everyone in the club room talking about whatever comes to mind, as the helicopter slowly raises in volume, and the camera matches the blade's rotation, albeit much slower, which in turn leads us to the crux of the episode. Ogi liked helicopters. As Hyouka establishes the uncertainty of Hotaru's claim, I feel it's important to note the storyboarding here, especially this shot, which as Hotaru turns to and says Mayaka's name, she's perfectly centered both here and in the following shot. The same exact thing happens in this sequence, though there's no call to focus on Chitanda. Also worth noting is the way that Hotaru's memories are slightly hazy, making them feel somewhat unreliable, prior to Mayaka remembering the occurrence. You can also see a character who is very likely middle school Mayaka in the background. Hyouka's attention to these small details, did you notice the wildfire victory plaque by the way, show a profound care for each and every shot and how it builds to a cohesive narrative experience. All the while, we learn that Ogi didn't react to other helicopters in a similar way to Hotaru's memory, and that Ogi was allegedly immortal, having survived lightning strikes 3 times. Satoshi's overly dramatic build-up to the story is both in line with his character while also leading us to seriously consider the evidence he provided. And Hotaru, unsurprisingly, is able to figure out the circumstances for that specific day just based off of those 2 things. His cognition about the past slowly collapsing as he realizes what he had taken at face value had a darker underside. This episode of Hyouka is phenomenal at balancing the light and dark aspects of its narrative, and it mostly comes through in the way that it's set up. Hotaru's initial apprehension about his theory, with the gears crashing down, begins to suggest a darker tone. But that scene was led into by really lighthearted banter, and is followed up by one of the funniest scenes in the show's run. Later on, when that darker underbelly to the mystery is confirmed to be accurate, it's bridged by Chitanda and Hotaru reading through books as light music plays. And the 2 concluding scenes again balance their weight, all the while being narratively important. A great example of this is when Chitanda pulls up with the bike. Hotaru tells her to go on ahead. It's especially amusing because Hotaru thinks through both roles and decides that neither is an option, even though it means that he's going to have to walk. In the case of him biking, it's an inherently romantic act with doves and roses, whereas the embarrassment from the inverse case is apparently too much for him to bear. The tone shift then comes after the ad break, as we get our first real look at the mountain range, rising far in the distance as a predatory bird cries out with the inherent danger it poses, which in turn is followed by this great tracking shot that Hotaru outspeeds, walking faster to make sure that Chitanda isn't waiting for too long. Hotaro's initial suspicions are confirmed after finding out that Ogi was indeed a mountain hiker as the ominous track 28 comes on in the background. The use of sunflowers in the stained glass on this shot hints to the importance of good weather in this case. After some lighthearted book searching as our two leads get to know each other a little bit better, a cute sequence wherein Chitanda and Hotaro's norms are at odds, a representation in dialogue what we had experienced in setting back in episode 4, Hotaro's theory proves to be right. Ogi didn't like helicopters. He just wanted one to fly that day to try and save two people who were stranded on the mountain. Helicopters couldn't fly the days before because of terrible weather conditions, but a nice sunny day means that helicopters can fly and survival rates go way up. This scene uses as its score track 43. Ogi's true feelings, wanting these men to be saved, so excited at what the bright sky might bring, masked by a throwaway line about liking helicopters. I can't help but be partially reminded of Sekitani Jun as the solution comes to light. In many ways, this is the complement to that story. Chitanda's past versus Hotaro's past. A realization shared face to face in front of the window, and indeed, the resolution of the story is a sorrowful one. The final notes of the song playing as Hotaro reveals to the audience that the two were later found dead by a police helicopter. The following shot reminding us how small each and every one of us are when it comes to something like a mountain range, and with it, life and death. But the heart of this episode comes at the end, as Chitanda asks why Hotaro wanted to look into this matter, saying it didn't seem like something he'd do. Hotaro agrees with her, citing his motto, which she denies outright. And why wouldn't she? From her perspective, Hotaro does things he never has to do all the time. Hotaro thinks to himself how that's a misunderstanding, but for Chitanda, she sees him doing things for others, but never for himself. The crosswalk turns to red just as Chitanda's curiosity points at Hotaro again, but this time it doesn't come off as intrusive or rude like it did in the classroom, but rather genuine, a genuine desire to know how Hotaro feels. The sound of a helicopter echoes in the distance as Hotaro begins to answer, how he only did it because it wouldn't take too long. But it isn't until the crosswalk turns to green that he gets to the heart of the matter. It's as though the show is saying in neon lights that this moment is important. Hotaro would have to be careful if his suspicions were true. It would be insensitive to simply say Ogi liked helicopters and leave it at that, when that's not the full story. In the same way that it would be wrong to claim that Sekitani Jun was expelled willingly, or that Hongo had intended the cameraman as the villain. He then clarifies,
無神経というか、あれだ。人の気も知らないでっていう感じだ。
And with that, the crosswalk turns back to red as Chitanda is unable to put her thoughts into words. But if I had to guess, I think she'd point out how similar that is to her desire. Chitanda is fundamentally curious about people's feelings. Episode 6, she wanted to know why her math teacher was mad. Sekitani Jun is about why she felt sad. Movie Mystery was about why Hongo couldn't finish the script and how she was feeling. Even in this very episode, Chitanda asks, I wonder how Ogi felt when he saw the helicopter flying that day. Chitanda says later that she was glad she could see another side of him. This desire to know how others feel, wanting to know more about people, which would seem on the face to be counterintuitive. But when you consider Hotaro's consistency in helping others, asking deeper questions to people like Irisu and Tanabe, when Hotaro says at the end of the movie Mystery that Irisu's answer made him feel better, the part of him that desires to know how others truly feel was satisfied by that exchange. What we learn about Hotaro here isn't anything particularly new, and it's certainly not for the sake of giving the protag character motivation 18 episodes into the show. It's to show us that Hotaro is comfortable sharing with Chitanda, highlighting their deeper relationship, and to show us the kindling of Chitanda's romantic feelings for Hotaro. So as Chitanda bikes away, Hotaro takes a brief moment to recognize how she helped him out today, and thinks to himself that he owes her one, right as the crosswalk turns back to green.